Aloha! Welcome to Truth in Movies. I'm JayDreamerZ, and today we're breaking down the movie Slumberland on Netflix. This one has Jason Momoa, kind of as an eccentric Beetlejuice kind of a character that takes us for a wild ride into the land of dreams. So today we're going to be taking a look at dreams and dream symbolism. Thanks for everyone in the live stream joining me in the chat. If you guys hear some dream symbolism and you know what it means too, feel free to share that with the rest of us too. All right, let's jump right in and check out this movie Slumberland. All right, so we start things off. We've got a girl who's in the water, and it says, there's a narrator who says, your dreams don't just happen. Some people think that dreams just happen. Some people think it's just random synapses firing off in the brain and it makes no sense. There's no rhyme or reason to it whatsoever. Maybe, or maybe they just don't understand what the dreams are for. The narrator goes on to say, we make them happen. So someone's making dreams happen. And she goes on, we design them with care just for you. So dreams are being designed, there's a purpose behind them, right? And they're being given to us for some sort of purpose, right? There's a purpose to dreams. She goes on and says, and where this one's going, she's going to need all the help that she can get. All right, so this is actually from the end of the movie. Now we're going to flash back to the past and start everything at the very beginning, where we zoom in on a lighthouse in the middle of an island on that nice horizon line right there. The horizon, or the lighthouse in the middle of an island, represents Mount Meru quite often. It is the lighthouse of the world. It's the tower filled with light, or the tower of light, the watchtower. It's also the same reason why pyramids are called that, because they're the light inside of a tower, or the light inside of a mountain, just like the plasma volcano that we talk about on my channel quite often. So we meet our main characters. We've got this girl Nemo and her dad, and they live here on the island, kind of secluded from the rest of society. They have a good time together, very close relationship. The dad sort of removed himself from society a while back, and so the little girl follows. He homeschools her, he takes care of his daughter at home, and he teaches her the things that she needs to know to survive, and shows her the trade of working in the lighthouse. They go out in between these mountains on this little sailing trip. The dad also teaches his daughter to sail too, which is a pretty key part of this movie and this whole series. And so he's teaching her how to sail. He's actually having her sail the boat right now. So what he's doing is, instead of teaching her random trivia that's only good for playing Jeopardy or Wheel of Fortune, he's teaching her real life skills that she can use to take care of herself whenever that time comes, right? Which is, for me personally, being a parent, that's what parenting is all about. It's about passing on the things that we know to the people that we care about, so that we can be guides for them, so that they can learn to do it on their own, right? Not to force people, but to just be a light, which is going to come into play later. All right, so they're out sailing the ocean. He's showing her how to work the lighthouse stuff. They have a great time. This sort of, you're going to see a switch back and forth between the red sky time, the time when our world was filled and inundated with magic, with power, with electromagnetic energy that was filling our world up. We don't live in that time now. So they're going to actually jump back and forth symbolically between the dream world, where they really are showing you what it's like to be in a dream whenever you go to sleep at night in this world. But also they're flashing back and forth between the time that is now a dream world to us, the time that is now a fantasy world, the time that was that is now to us a wonderland, right? They're going to show us glimpses of that time and compare it to the modern age, to the modern world. All right, so the dad kicks things off, and he's like, what's a lighthouse for? And he's quizzing his daughter. She's like, oh, that's easy. It's to keep ships safe. Is it? Is a lighthouse to keep ships safe? So the dad says, nah, but when you can answer that question, I'll give you the keys to the lighthouse, and that's a promise. So now we have some more symbolism coming in from the movies by way of giving us keys, right? He's asking the question to us, not to his daughter in the movie, because this script was written for us. It's a message for us, as are all songs, lyrics to all the songs, movies, books, etc. They're messages being given to us in the form of, or the guise of, entertainment, quite often. So he says, I'll give you the keys to the lighthouse if you can figure out the answer to this question. So if we are going to get the keys to the lighthouse, symbolically speaking, that means the keys to the world, which is going to play another part here in just a bit when we meet his brother. So the question is, what is a lighthouse for? Basically, when we can figure out the answer to that, the keys to the world will be given to us, is what's being conveyed here. All right, so the little girl's about to go to bed, and the dad's like, you don't want your pig, your little stuffed animal pig anymore? And she goes, I am 11, which is symbolic for meaning non-human, essentially, 11, or elven, of the elven race, or the Elu, or the elves. And also it's the two tower symbolism, the one and the one together. But she's basically saying, I'm 11. Sorry, I don't do stuffed animals. I don't talk to inanimate objects anymore. But the dad is the storyteller in this movie. He represents those of us who live now, who can remember those things that have been forgotten in our ancient past, or what I call our ancient oblivion. Those things that have been hidden from us, or those things that we have hidden from ourselves just by forgetting about them, right? We don't tell those stories time and time again. Now we tell them in the form of Hollywood and movies and stuff. And talking to an inanimate object is something that harkens back to the time where magic filled the world and there were no inanimate objects. Everything was animate, basically. So he says, sorry, pig, it's a rite of passage. She's growing up. She's getting older. That's not the little girl talking. That's society talking, basically, saying, oh, you're too old to talk to things. I talk to inanimate objects. I talk to water, right? If you speak to water or play music for water, it actually changes the molecular structure of the water, right? You can charge objects by speaking to them, charge them positively or negatively, right? So he says to the pig, oh no, don't worry, you'll be fine. I'll still be here for you. And then she's like, all right, Dad, well, give me another story, a bedtime story. Like I said, he's the storyteller. Also take a look at the lamp that they chose to put right in the middle of the two in her room, right? You'll see this specific shape quite often whenever you're researching ancient or forgotten history in the form of petroglyphs. Even Nostradamus has some writings where he drew out prophecies and included that exact same wagon wheel in the sky kind of a shape. It represents the all-seeing eye, or the depressurization point whenever the world experiences worldwide depressurization. All right, so he's like, all right, you want another story? How about a Flip story? So Flip is the main character of all of his stories. Him and Flip go on these adventures together, right? He's going to share with her, symbolically speaking, times that he remembers, either by spirit memory or personal experience or whatever. He's going to share with her the old times, the ways that are forgotten. Those are the bedtime stories that we, over time, have shared with our children. They become nursery rhymes. They become the stories of old legends and myths. And he's going to share these with her so that she can remember them. And there's a reason why these are bedtime stories. These are the things that were told to children to get this on their mind right before they went to bed. Why? So that they could dream about it, so they could access more information about it. So he starts talking about Flip. Now, Flip also throughout this movie is going to be a code for the flip that we go through, the polarity flip. Hey, welcome me on things and stuff. Welcome to my channel. So when we talk about Flip, symbolically, he represents the apocalypse, the red sky, when the world is full of magic and everything's very chaotic. So he says he's heard about these pearls, magic pearls. Pearls have come up quite often on my channel, and in many of our Truth in Movies, they feature somebody named Pearl or something that represents a pearl. And we've talked about many times how these pearls represent plasma, right? Little balls of light, basically, that energize things. And he says you get one of these pearls and you can wish for whatever you want. The trouble was that these pearls can only be found in the most dangerous waters known to mankind. Now, in our world, traditionally, the most dangerous waters were those surrounding the North Pole, where the legends say there was a whirlpool or an indrawing sea, where there was actually currents. The ocean currents were so strong that it was like being in a river with a very strong current, and sailors had to be very careful whenever they got closer to the North Pole. All right, and then he says the Sea of Nightmares, or dreams. Either way, it depends on your perspective, right? But whenever you get closer to the North Pole, that's when things become more magical and the world starts to change drastically. So basically, you're entering into another realm whenever you get towards Mount Meru. That's the ends of the earth, traditionally speaking. That's the furthest west that you can go. West used to be more like towards the center of the earth or downwards, and east was more like an upward direction, basically. He says it was the biggest, deadliest whirlpool that I've ever seen. until I noticed there was a hole right there in the bottom of the sea. So the hole that would be right in the middle, if we're talking about the North Pole, according to the ancient maps that we used to have that showed land at the middle of the North Pole, there would be a hole right there in the middle. It's Mount Meru. It's an opening that goes down into the hollow recesses of our world. He says, so I swam into that hole. But then something happens. He gets a phone call. He has to take off. He's like, there's an emergency. There's a boat out at sea. I got to go help him out. Listen, you know what to do if the power goes off, right? He's talking to you. He's talking to us. You know what to do if the power goes off, right? Because that's what's going to happen in the movie, which means that's a prophecy, or it's a prediction of what's going to happen collectively to us in our world. The power is going to go off. We are dependent upon power, upon electricity specifically, the kind that we create and pay for and all this stuff, when once we used to just pull it right out of the ether, right out of the air. That's how strong of a charge our world used to be filled with, right? But now we have to learn how to live without it whenever it goes away. The internet, smartphones, all that stuff, right? So the question is, do you know how to live without the power? So the dad takes off, goes out to his boat. The daughter falls asleep. Pay attention to the color scheme they use whenever she goes to sleep and how it relates to the things that are happening. First, everything turns this pale blue color. Everything starts to freeze. This is what happens when the world depressurizes around what we call the Arctic Circle. The reason we have that Arctic Circle is because when the world depressurizes, all of the air gets sucked up and goes right up towards the hole that's in the sky. But then there's also a downdraft, just like in The Day After Tomorrow, where it pulls super cooled air up from the high reaches of our sky and it throws it down into a burst down onto the ground in a perfect circle right around the hole or the opening up in the sky. So it creates freezing cold conditions in the Arctic Circle area. Not directly in the middle. In the middle would be like the eye of the storm. All right, so everything starts to instantly freeze. The entire tower, the entire lighthouse starts to freeze too. Water crashes into it and it comes tumbling down. The tower falls. This is the tower falling symbolism. When that inner earth blue energy light, right? It shoots out and it stays out and it's seen as holding up the sky. Hey, thanks for your support, Serving Angel. Good to see you. Those blue beams reach out and they touch the sky and they're seen as these gods and titans that are holding the sky up, or poles that are being lifted, these spiritual poles or arrows or all kinds of symbolism, right? But when those beams of light retract, it's seen as the tower falling, right? Especially the one that's at Mount Meru. That's the main one. When that goes down, it's seen as the tower's falling symbolism, or just like the Tower of Babel falling down too. Here's that whirlpool that we were talking about. So she gets sucked into the whirlpool whenever the tower goes down, or that blue beam energy goes down into the earth. She goes down into the waters. Also of note, right, that the tower crashes down into the water. That lighthouse goes down into the ocean, just like the sinking of Atlantis, right? All right, so she looks down and she sees her dad's boat. Check out the name of the boat. This is a little bit more context for the message that's being shared, the esoteric message, the hidden message. The boat's name is Ariel. Not a part of the movie. They didn't talk about the boat's name or anything. They could have named that boat anything, but Ariel is symbolic for what we're talking about, that tower going down into the waters. Ar, or Or, means light. Sometimes, by extension, fire. But it means light. And E, the I part, is just possession. So it means my light. And then El, which means a mighty leader. The light is my mighty leader, basically. Or the light is my God, basically. And that gets sucked down into this whirlpool, into this hole in the middle of the ocean. So the light, named after the boat named after the light, also goes down symbolically. Now, we got a government worker who says, Nemo, I got bad news. Your dad died at sea, basically. Now we learn the character's name is Nemo. Let's check this out, because Nemo comes up quite often in fantasy symbolism, especially in Hollywood and in books. Nemo, this is kind of funny. Nemo in Latin literally means no man, or no one, or nobody, no person. Not specifically a male, right? Kind of like in Lord of the Rings, remember that Sauron thinks he can kick everyone's butt, and he's like, no man can kill me. And that chick's like, I am no man because I'm a chick, right? And then she gets to kill him, right? But basically, Nemo translates to no person, because it comes from ni homo, right? Like the knights who say ni means no, right? So no homo. No homo is exactly what Nemo means. Not homo, not human, essentially, right? It's kind of funny in that manner. Anyways, they say probably. You see that right there? Probably from no hemo or homo, which means human or whatever. But they're not sure, so I did extra digging. Let's check this out. There's a root in the Proto-Indo-European called nem. N-E-M. That's the root for Nemo. The O at the end is just a vav, and it's a connector, meaning of thee. So this girl is of thee something, of the nem. The nem. Now, what is the nem? It means the assigned, the allotted, or that which is taken. Your take after something is left over. What you get after everything is left over, right? So essentially, Nemo in the old world languages could be translated as the chosen, or of the chosen, right? Those who are the survivors or seen as being chosen after the apocalyptic event. Those who make it past some sort of apocalyptic event or quest or stuff like that, right? All right, so take a look at her sweater too, because her sweater actually changes from when she's in the dream world to when she's in the waking world. They call this one the waking world. So they have this funeral at sea, or out there on a peninsula, and listen to what is being said at the funeral. This priest says, "I hope to see my pilot face to face when I have crossed the bar." Now that's interesting as a figure of speech, to cross the bar and see God, right? The bar is the beam, the column, that rod that shoots up out of the ground, that sky pillar, right? That beam of light, all of the many beams of light. But to be able to cross that bar is seen as climbing Jacob's ladder. That bar is the meeting place where you go to meet other people, because the wise of the world follow that light. They go towards the light in a time of darkness, right? And it's good because that light brings about healing and other things with it. So the wise follow and meet up at the bar. They meet up at the post, right? It's a gathering place. All right, cool. So she meets her uncle, who's kind of estranged from his brother. The uncle is the exact opposite of the brother in this movie at the beginning of it. Basically, he's very reclusive, very worldly, and not too much in the imagination department, but we're going to learn more about him in just a second. He takes her back to his place, which is Nemo's new home, right? She's going to live with her uncle. And he's like, "Man, I don't know what to show kids. What do kids get excited about? Check out my doorknob collection." He says, right? "Look at all these awesome doorknobs." And she's like, "You're a doorknob salesman." He's like, "No, I own a company that sells doorknobs." So he owns this doorknob company. Why did they choose him to do that? It's because he symbolizes a god, an ancient Roman god named Janus. Janus was the god of doorways, the god of portals, the god of doors or transitional periods, etc. Here is an example of Janus. He represents the blue beam, in short, right? He is the god of the garden, which, if you break down Janus or Ganos, it translates to strong of the garden or strength of the garden, basically. And you can see him sitting right there between the two pillars, the anode and the cathode, respectively, how we talk about in some of our other plasma apocalypse videos. Also, check this out. Earlier, Nemo was talking about receiving, her father was saying that she's going to get a key, the key to the lighthouse, the key to Janus, the key to the door, the key to the portal to get out of this world, essentially, to escape the world the way that it is today, the blue sky. He also has a staff. You see that? Now, I'm gonna give you a little tip. It's possible that when you see these types of gods, that the human or the humanoid figure, the torso, the arms and the legs and stuff, that might actually just be the personification of the real God in the picture, which is the pole or the staff or the wand or the rod, etc. That the rod is being personified as a human, given two heads, etc., right? All right, so keep that in mind, and we'll go forward. I'm going to teach you a little bit about Janus, just so you can get caught up real quick. He is the god of doors, gates, and transitions. He represented the middle ground between concrete and abstract dualities, right? And that represents Janus, the god of doorways, being present and being the god that helps everyone when the blue beam comes up out of the earth, or the god that is seen as locking the doors and keeping things out and stuff when the blue beam retracts, etc., right? So we go from a magical state on one side, or one face of our world, is very magical and mystical and full of power and energy, and the impossible seems to come to life and flourish. But then we have the other side, which is the world we live in today, where the world is being sucked dry of our energy, basically, and there's not a lot of magic left. According to Roman mythology, Janus was present at the beginning of the world. That would be the creation event in the garden. He's the strong one of the garden. As the god of gates, Janus guarded the gates of heaven and held access to heaven and other gods as well. So he represents the duality of the god Janus, or Mount Meru with the beam and Mount Meru without the beam as well. He says that this special lock that he has here came up from a place called Alcatraz, which I thought was interesting. So he literally has the lock to a prison, right? He's the one that holds the locks and the keys and everything. And Alcatraz actually comes from the word albatross. I looked that one up. It's pretty interesting. Now, he has no idea how to be a parent, so he sits down in front of the computer and he Googles it. How do I raise a kid, right? This is sad to me today, and to many of us, that we don't collectively, in general, know how to raise children. We have to Google things. We have to sit them in front of a television and have them watched as a form of babysitting, because we really don't know how to teach kids to grow up. We don't know what to teach kids or what things are important. Just like Nemo's dad, he was teaching her things that she needed to know in order to survive so that she could take care of herself if it happened that one day he would be gone, and he is. Now, she goes to sleep. Look at the colors. See how the colors changed? That is the exact same color that I've been talking about whenever we go into the golden age. It's a golden color. Possibly, my theory on this is that the anode and the cathode, when the energy runs through them and goes back up, shoots up to the sky, and you see all those beams coming out and stuff, that it creates an electrical arc between the anode and the cathode up between the island that used to exist at the North Pole. And it creates a low-pressure sodium vapor lamp effect, which starts off as a bright purple, a purple flash, which for us would last a lot longer than just a quick flash because it's so much bigger. It's on a bigger scale. It goes from purple to a deep red to a sort of an orangey, amber, yellow, monochrome glow to it. And that's whenever our world starts to change colors. And that's when magic enters into our world, because it's being filled with energy. The electromagnetic barrier around our world goes back up after the neutral point, which locks in all that energy that is being released from within the earth herself. And we get to experience living in that energy in high energetic conditions, which brings things to life, essentially. So that's what's being represented by this pig right here, right? There's so much electrical charge that you won't need to plug stuff in order for it to work. Now, first, there will be an electromagnetic pulse. Everything will turn off. Everything that's electrical will turn off. But then life will be given to everything in our world, including those things that we have made that we call slaves or robots, right? Toys, toasters, whatever it may be. They automatically just come to life because they have the energy that they need to be alive. They draw it from the air itself. And then, because they're alive apart from our electrical charge that we give them, right? They just start working all on their own. Things come to life, just like Skynet or Terminator, right? So the pig comes to life, etc. Now, what extent do things come to life? Like, would a stuffed animal actually be able to move? I'm not sure. I think it would have to move according to the mechanics of whatever vessel it's inside of. So if it's a mechanical toy, yes, it could definitely move around and stuff. So I'm not too sure about the extent of how much a stuffed animal could actually move around and talk and stuff, right? But it's possible. All right, so Nemo wakes up. She's in the dream world. She's in the sodium vapor canopy world that we once lived in a long time ago and will once return to us. Her bed becomes magical. It starts to grow legs, right? And it becomes very tall. You can see the bed. She's actually walking around and the legs are super tall. It's kind of some Fantazoid symbolism there of the otherworldly beings that come into our world. So she's way up there on the bed walking across and she's going somewhere. The bed takes her to the island ferry docks. Now this is interesting too. I've seen ferry symbolism come up quite often where they use the word ferry as if it's just like the boats, but it's really a play on the word fairy, like, you know, a little fairy with wings or whatever, right? A little magical creature of light that flies around. Those are little balls of light. Those are what we were talking about. Little pearls, you know what I mean? Little ball lightning, basically. So the island fairy, the fairy of the island, and then docks. What does docks mean? Well, let's check out fairy real quick. Fairy, if you look it up, essentially comes from Norse ferja, which means to pass over. So we have a direct reference to the Passover. During this dream sequence that she's having, there's a reference to the Passover. The Passover is a reference to the apocalypse, right? The Last Supper, when you have your last meal in this age that we live in now before going into the next age, where finding food's not going to be as easy as visiting your local grocery store. So everyone shares in the Last Supper. You also saw this when we broke down the Truman Show, right? Same exact thing. The Harbor Island Ferry. And that one says the terminal, right? But then that one says the Island Ferry dock. What does dock mean? Let's check it out. Dock comes from ductia, or the word duct, right? Like aqueduct. And in Latin, it's ducere, which means to lead, from the Proto-Indo-European root word duke, which means to lead, right? A leader. Possibly from the Scandinavian word meaning low ground, which would be like a valley, right? So what we have here, if we go back and check it out, is that blue beam is the fairy. That is the ultimate fairy of the world. If we call a fairy a little creature of light, essentially, if we simplify it, then that blue beam of light, seen as Atlas holding up the sky, that would be the leader of all of the fairy people, right? Or the fae. And then the dock. So the fairy island docks. All right, let's move forward. All right, so she's on the boat. The boat gets into the water, and she starts taking off towards the Aurora Borealis, which is symbolic for the North Pole, right? She's on her way to the North Pole, which also reminded me of an old movie called Bedknobs and Broomsticks with Angela Lansbury, where they also, interestingly enough, travel around on a bed, right? I think it's important for the bed to have like posts representing those four living creatures in the Bible that surround the throne of God, also Mount Meru, right, where the light sits or dwells. And then they also visit like all kinds of animals that can talk and stuff. Aurora Borealis. So aurora comes from the word fire or light. Or is light or fire. So aurora is like the light of lights, basically. And then borealis, or boreal, comes from boreal, and it says it's of unknown origin. So they're not sure on this website where the word borealis comes from. But if you look closer and do more investigation, you can see that the root for borealis is bar, right? The word bar. And a bar is a stake or a rod of iron used to fasten a door or a gate, right? More door symbolism. Borealis basically means it comes from the bar of the world, the light of the world, the sky beam of the world, the column of the world. And there you have it. She goes right towards the Aurora Borealis, and square right in the middle, you've got those four witnesses, or those four little mini columns that shoot up off of her bedposts. And then right there in the middle is Mount Meru, symbolically speaking, surrounded by plasma all over the place. It's the light of the world. And she goes back into the lighthouse because her dad had died. So in her dream, she's looking for her dad and expects him to be alive. Instead, she finds Flip. So this is the first time we meet this Flip character. Let's take a look. This is Jason Momoa, aka Aquaman. Very Johnny Depp kind of Beetlejuice in character. I like the character that he played in this movie. And he's in the lighthouse going through her dad's stuff. And she's like, "Who are you?" And he goes, he's hiding over there in the closet. Nobody? He says he's nobody. Isn't that interesting? That's the second time that's come up in this movie. The girl's name literally translates to nobody. Now he's saying, my name is also nobody, right? Remember, we looked up Nemo and it means not human, essentially, right? Not human, no homo, no humans, basically. Excuse me. So she says, "Who are you?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm not human." And you can clearly see that he's not human. He looks like a werewolf. He looks like Pan, the god Pan. He's got these horns and stuff. He actually has the feet of a wolf, which is really interesting too. All right. So remember, the root of Nemo means chosen. It means something that is assigned, something that is allotted, or a take after everything is left over. Now, this also comes from the Odyssey. In Homer's The Odyssey, it says that Odysseus was trapped in a cave of the Cyclops Polyphemus, who ate two of Odysseus's men. The king of Ithaca was traveling and was about to eat Odysseus himself, but then Odysseus got Polyphemus drunk, the one-eyed giant. So Odysseus got Polyphemus drunk, the Cyclops, and told him that his name is Nobody. And then after that, he gouged out the eyeball of the Cyclops so that he was blind. And when the Cyclops went out asking for help, he's like, nobody's hurting me, nobody's hurting me, because that was the name that Odysseus gave him. So he kind of tricked him, right? Let's check that out. I want to go into that story real quick. So Odysseus blinds the one-eyed giant, or the Cyclops, right? And his name is Polyphemus. Poly means many. Let's check out Phemus and see what Phemus means. Now, Phemus comes from pheme, which means a word regarded as grammatical unit of language, and it basically means speech, voice, utterance, or a speaking. So Polyphemus means many voices, many utterances, many sounds, right? Many different voices that you hear all at once, like a crowd talking, right? And here you have Odysseus blinding the one-eyed giant, the Cyclops. Cycle means circle, ops means eye, right? So the round eye, the circle eye. Symbolically, this is the blue beam that pokes the eye in the sky up there in the depressurization point, pokes it in the eye and blinds it, essentially, right? Very interesting stuff. Also, just the fact that there's many voices coming from this Cyclops, or this round eye in the sky. Those many voices are the thunderings that you hear when all that plasma comes down into our world. There'll be cracklings and electrical sounds all over the place. And even in the Bible, it talks about these sounds. It says it sounds like the rushing of many waters, or many voices all speaking at the same time, right? And electricity can sound like that. That's why you have like banshees that are heard, these entities, these light entities that are usually near bodies of water that sound like they're crying or screaming or things like that. All right, so we go back to Flip, who represents the polarity flip. And he says, well, your dad and I used to be partners a long time ago. Now let's check out her dad's name. What is her dad's name in the movie? Her dad's name is Peter. There's the dad right there. So Flip, his brother, basically represents Pan. Her dad's name is Peter, which means collectively together, since they basically both end up being her dad in a manner of speaking, her dad is Peter Pan, right? The kid that can fly, etc., goes off to dreamland, Neverland or whatever. He says before he went straight and had a kid, and that's talking about the cycle of the blue beam going up and coming back in and giving birth again, etc. He says, my name's Flip, and he does a little devil horn type thing, and his hand says Flip right there, right? He does represent the red sky. He represents the red plasma that comes down. He represents the world of magic. He represents living for a very long time, which is what happens when the sky turns red, right? Oh, also, can we just do a quick check? I just want to make sure that the live stream's still good. If it is, no problems. Just give me a little thumbs up, please. Appreciate it. So Flip represents living in that magical world, in that mystical world. Also, his outfit, if you see like little shoulder things there, that was worn by the original Nemo in the cartoon version, I think. Anyways, he's got super long hair because he grows old for a very long time. In that red world, under the red sky, people and animals and plants and stuff, they live for a very long time compared to us today that are basically like that dude in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade who just gets all super old real fast, right? It's just that we're used to it. When we become used to living much longer, and everything is flipped, we could say, right? Your cells grow at an amazing rate. Basically, you develop like the power of Wolverine, like this super healing regeneration kind of a power, right? And that means that hair starts to grow, become thicker and stronger. It's the fountain of youth, so it starts to reverse the effects of aging, right? And it starts to build more collagen and elastin in your skin and stuff. And then so your hair will grow out much longer. People won't want to cut their hair because they'll start to realize the connection and the purpose that the hair has whenever you live in an electrically charged atmosphere, right? It's going to benefit people to have their hair grow long as opposed to cutting it short and being cut off from their connection. Also, horns. It very well may be that humans have the ability, actually, I'm telling you as a matter of fact, they do, because there are many humans that have horns. We have the ability to grow horns. Now, oftentimes this doesn't happen to most people. who are the anomalous exceptions, right? The things that our spirit memory or our DNA remembers subconsciously. That's why we have the ability to grow horns, just like animals and other things do too. It's just that we don't live long enough to grow horns, okay? If you live for a few hundred years, you probably might start growing some horns and stuff, you know? You can Google people with horns too. You'll find hundreds of examples. All right, so he says, I thought you were something that my dad made up. Now remember, he is the subject of these flip stories, these flip bedtime stories about the polarity reversal of our world. And she's saying, I thought my dad just made that up. I thought it just sounded like a cool bedtime story, right? The moral of this movie is that it's real. The moral of many of these movies and TV shows and all this stuff, you're going to start being told point blank that these things are real. Okay? They're basically telling you now, they're telling us, they're telling me at the very least, I accept, that these stories, these myths, these legends, all have strong elements of truth to them. It's just that they've been cartoonified over time and it's false to us to figure them back out. All right, so he busts out some chopsticks, starts catching flies that are buzzing around him, and he's eating the flies because he also represents Beelzebub, or the devil, right? When the devil comes in or whatever. Now, there's the time when just because he represents a magical world does not mean that he represents evil. I will tell you that. He does represent a rebellious spirit being flip, okay? Not Beelzebub or anything too religious or anything. But Beelzebub is the Lord of the flies, and he's eating flies, which also is Kronos symbolism because he's eating his children. He represents that time whenever the hole opens up in the sky, the world, our atmosphere of our entire world depressurizes, things get sucked up and out, some things get spit back down and they fall back down. And that's what he's representing, is the time of magic that seems fantastic to us today. It seems like a bedtime story. So he's like, Nemo's like, you're just ripping my dad's room apart? He has to. It is his purpose, being something that represents the polarity flip, right? That's literally his name. He has to destroy the room. That's his MO, right? Whenever our world goes through the apocalypse, our room, our world is going to be utterly flipped around. Everything's gonna be flipped upside down, tossed around, just piles and piles of debris all over the place. You know what I mean? Nothing will be where it once was. He says, your dad, he had a map. I need that map. Now, all of a sudden, we're on this truth-seeking journey where we need to find some kind of a special map, a unique map. He says, never mind, I'll find it myself. Right? And the reason I took a picture of this is because this is where this comes from, okay? This god in the sky, this sky god, Kronos or Medusa or Shiva, etc., oftentimes they're shown as sticking out their tongue because the tongue represents the plasma that comes out of the opening in the sky. Out of the mouth of the sky god comes this pinkish, reddish kind of, serpent-looking tongue. Basically, it's plasma that comes out of it. And that's why we do that as a sign to say, I'm rebellious. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to be different because that's the time of rebellion. That's the time when the world rebels and the energy shifts and changes and goes into a different frequency or spectrum. All right. So he says, hey, she says, you can't just bust into here like some kind of thief. Well, that's exactly how the apocalypse is going to come, like a thief in the night. The apocalypse comes when we least expect it. At least that's what all of the legends and the myths and the religions talk about. They all say that the apocalypse is late. Every time it's late. Comes when you don't expect it. She says you can't take things from other people's dreams because remember, she's dreaming right now. He goes, sure you can. You just got to know how to get in and get out. So if we stop thinking about the symbolism of how this just represents we're in the mind of this girl and we're just in some dream while she's sleeping on her bed or whatever, and if we extend it to the real world, to our waking world, right? Then other people's dreams would be every other realm that is out there in the fractalverse filled with an infinite number of realms. Every one of those worlds, right, would be a dream. It would represent one continuous dream of that particular region or section. So what he now represents is a dream traveler, somebody who can travel between realities, between worlds, between dreams. If those worlds are all a part of a bigger dream, right? He says you have to know how to get in and get out. That's important because if you get stuck in one, you start to age, okay? So if you live between worlds out there in the fractalverse or the heavens, the conditions are right to keep you from aging, to keep your body from deteriorating, so you can keep forever young, essentially. But I imagine after a while that gets kind of old and people like to come in and partake in these experiences of these worlds in the multiverse, or the fractalverse as I call it. So they become sliders or jumpers or travelers, space travelers, whatever you want to call them. He says, I'm going on a little treasure hunt, and this treasure is magic, as are we all going on a treasure hunt. So he picks her up, he puts her in the window. I took a picture of this. It's hard to see on your side, but let me zoom in. You can see what's right above her head. Check this out. Boom, you see that? That is a dream catcher. Just for a quick moment, right? Now she's actually going to physically be caught because he's going to push her out of the window to try to like wake her up or whatever so that she's not in the dream any longer, and he can continue to raid the place. But the dream catcher is put underneath the child purposefully, right? Let's check out some information on dream catchers real quick. It says the spiderweb charm. The dream catcher is also known as a spiderweb charm, right? And it's a net-like charm from the White Earth Nation, also known as the Bwajije. Oh, I'm not going to even try that one, sorry. The dream snare, basically. I'm going to explain this in just a minute. It says it's a hoop with a woven string or a sinew meant to replicate a spider's web. Used, this is the important part, used as a protective charm for infants specifically, not just, oh, here's a dream catcher just for anybody, you know, as a gift for my 40-year-old uncle or whatever. Specifically, dream catchers are designed for children, right? Others people can use them and benefit from them, but children benefit the most. Why? Remember when we broke down Halloween and we were talking about all these boogeymen and stuff that basically are cartoonifications of plasma? The plasma is attracted to the strongest energetic charges. The strongest energetic charges in humans comes from children. So there was a danger to babies and children and virgins and people who had strong soul energy, right? There was a danger that the plasma would be so attracted to them that it would come and envelop them like a sleeping infant or something, and that they would suffocate on plasma, essentially, or the byproduct, that goo that's left behind by the ghosts or the plasma or whatever. So they hung this stuff, or they put out food, or they did things to appease these gods or these ghosts or these hauntings and stuff, specifically to protect their children. So that's why they hung this stuff up there, so that if plasma did enter into the room, it would be attracted to these things that were created. Oftentimes they actually hung objects off of the dream catcher. It's not just the little spiderweb decoration, but they would hang, you know, metallic objects and other things on there to attract the plasma so that it would stay there and go through that little circuitry that was made so that it doesn't go down into the baby and suffocate the baby, basically. All right, I thought that was pretty interesting. Let's move forward. So she gets pushed out of the window by Flip. She's falling and boom, she disappears. Another symbolism in dreams. Have you ever had a dream that you're falling? Or how about flying? When I fly in my dreams, I do like a froggy swim. I don't know how you guys fly, okay, but I like to do my little froggy swim, and I don't really fly like Superman. I don't have like propulsion or anything. I just kind of float. So I just kind of bounce off things and try to go in the, but sometimes I get scared of not being able to control flying, and I'll just keep on rising up and up and up. I think that symbolizes collective memories that we have of the depressurization event where everything floats, and you'll float too. All right, so she wakes up from her dream. So while in her dream, everything's had like a yellow tint to it, in the waking world, everything is that bright. I mean, look at it. Look, it's bright, right? Very colorful, more of a color spectrum when you have all of this bright, hot white light coming down at us. So the uncle walks in and he's like, yeah, I don't remember my dreams. Well, many adults don't remember their dreams. I can tell you there's many different reasons for why people might not remember their dreams. I fully believe, personally, that everybody dreams. So if you don't remember your dream, I don't know if you're not having dreams, but I like to believe that everybody dreams. I don't know. I could be wrong on that. I know that I dream, and I know there's many times when I've forgotten my dreams, even whenever I don't remember a thing, right? But this guy is cut off from his other half, which, as you're going to see this in the movie, this guy represents Janus. Right now, he doesn't remember the red sky. He doesn't remember the fantastic world the way it once was full of strange creatures and monsters and giants and sea creatures and wizards and warlocks and magicians and witches and sorcerers and kings and queens and adventurers. You know what I mean? We don't remember that. Those are just old wives. Those are myths and legends that are tossed about on the winds of time. So he doesn't remember his dreams. That's what that represents. He also brings in a cup of milk. It's a total random. He's like, oh, I brought you some milk, right? Like, why? Dude, why was that in the movie? You know what I mean? This is not important. This was not detrimental to anything, which tells me that it actually is. When they put some random stuff in there where they could have written anything, but it's something that they usually do, like a cup of milk, right? Isn't that strange? I brought you some milk, right? Okay, all the way into her bedroom, you just brought her some milk for no reason? That's so weird. It's not even a part of the movie. All right, so he hands her the milk. I've talked about what the milk symbolizes quite often, right? In this case, it would not be adrenochrome. So all the people that think that any milk reference is always adrenochrome, it's not, because he's giving it to this little kid. Okay, so it doesn't seem to me to represent adrenochrome in this particular instance. But he says, "You're excited for your first day of school, huh?" And she's like, "School? What? I'm not a fish. What do you mean school?" Right? So this is the blue sky that we live in today. This is the world without magic, where people have to go and be taught by complete strangers how to allegedly survive as a grown person, right? Which blows my mind. She responds by having this conversation. Let me read it to you. She says, "My dad says that schools are basically prisons. They keep kids locked up physically and mentally. They prepare them for jobs that are also basically prisons." And so his retort is, "Nuh-uh." That's his answer. This just represents everyone in mainstream, okay? That's basically their answer. They don't know how to handle that because they have been taught and brainwashed that this concept that we are now discussing is an essential part of society. It's an integral part of being able to survive and grow and listen. It's not. It's not. It's a tradition. It is an initiation. Right? And once you get tricked into it, you're going to be stuck into it for a while. He says school is not a prison. She says, "Can I leave whenever I want to?" Okay, it's a little like a prison, basically, right? I love this. I like that she's engaging him. She's not arguing. She's just asking a question using the Socratic method so that he can realize, oh, that's right. Pointing out the obvious, right? You can't leave whenever you want to. It is like a prison. All right, so he busts out his Alcatraz lock and he's teaching her how to pick locks, right? How to take a little shortcut or how to get past the doors because he represents the god of doors. Houdini who? Houdini me, that's who. All right, so she goes back to sleep and everything turns that monochromatic yellow color that we talked about, that sodium vapor lamp color, right? And that's when the pig comes back to life. Because she's dreaming, but also because in reality, it represents a time when our world turned golden and we could communicate with the animals telepathically because the world is so energetically charged. So the pig stands in front of this picture. When you first look at this picture, you might think it's like a picture of the sun or the moon and maybe a mountain or a wave or something. It's not. This is actually a close-up of the pearl that they're looking for. This is a pearl and it's a light. That's why it looks like a sun or a moon or something, because the pearls are not actual pearls from oysters. That is a cartoonification. The pearls, the real ones, the real valuable ones, are pure energy, and they float about in the world to come. In specific areas, in particular areas, right? Areas of high energetic charge, usually caves and grottos and stuff. All right, so the girl wakes up out of her dream, and in her dream told her where to find the map. So in the real world, there's a connection between the dream world and our real world. The dream world seems to be giving us clues to help us out during the waking world session, right? So she takes out this map of the dream universe or whatever it's called. And on the back it says she needs to get food, a flashlight, string, and a boring book, which we're going to go over. First thing she grabs is her string. Now it's a crimson string. It's a red string. It has to be a red string. And I'll show you why. There's red string symbolism in Hollywood. If you didn't know about it, you're going to learn right now. It says that wearing a thin scarlet or crimson ring as a type of talisman is a Jewish folk custom that is practiced as a way to ward off misfortune, which is brought about by the evil eye. So wearing this red string or this crimson string is something that is done quite often as a Jewish tradition to ward off the evil eye, which is the depressurization point in the sky, right? Whenever all the lights go out, you'll see it and it's red. Okay, so all the Nibiru people that will look up and see a big, huge red circle in the sky, you will probably think that a planet is about to crash, but it's not. It's just a hole in the sky. You could see the light behind the hole, right, which is red. Probably because it's ionized hydrogen, I would guess. Now check this out. Let's zoom in on one of these red strings that the celebrities wear. Okay, you got Madonna wearing hers. You got whoever that is wearing hers, and this chick. All right, but look here's a little talisman on the end of it. You see that, how it has the hand and then it's got a little eye in the middle, right? That's because you have the depressurization point or the hole in the sky, and then the plasma that seeps out follows the jet stream. It goes in whatever direction the wind is basically blowing, right? So sometimes it's seen as all of the plasmas coming out in one direction, and that's the hand with the eye in the middle of it or whatever. This is the hand of Freddy Krueger, the finger symbolism of the gods, etc. All right. So she's being dropped off at school. Check out what she does. She's like, oh, hey, uncle, I need to check my schedule. Can I see your phone? Then she uses the phone's app, the school app, to excuse herself from school for 2 weeks. Then she goes down into the school's basement, right? So this is interesting, right? It reminds me of the Never-Ending Story. Remember how the kid found the book? And instead of going home to read the book, because he can't go home, he wants his parents to think he's at school. He wants the school to think that he's, participating or whatever. So he goes into the attic to read his book. She goes into the basement. The basement represents the esoteric or the hidden, those things that are buried underneath. She's underneath, or she's learning about the esoteric teachings, right? The school is the surface level. The school is all that basic surface level stuff. She's going esoteric, and she's going to teach herself by going down into the basement in order to read stuff. Also, you see that sign says staff only. It's restricted, right? It's only for the approved to go down into the inner recesses of the world. You will see this if you like to check out cave systems. Many of the cave systems are closed off by the governments of the world, and they said, nope, staff only. Nope, authorized personnel only. Don't go inside of the world. Don't go down. Don't get deeper. Basically. Now, she's not even asleep yet. She's gone down into the basement area, the esoteric, and look what color we have. Once again, that same sodium vapor lamp kind of a color. So she passes out, wakes up in dream world, and she's met by Flip, where she brings the map that they're looking for so they can find these energetic pearls. And Flip tells her maybe the real world's bigger than you thought, right? It's just a little clue for us. Maybe the world, or what we think of as being Earth, right? Maybe it's way bigger than we thought. All right, so we see the lighthouse once again representing Mount Meru. And she's like, hey, you can't just take stuff. He says, taking stuff's kind of my thing, kid. Kronos takes things, okay? That sky god, when it makes its appearance from time to time, reaches down into our world and is seen as a thief. Its purpose is to pull out all this stuff because it's a part of the reset. It needs to get rid of a bunch of stuff. So it sucks out a bunch of stuff from our world, and it is seen as the thief that comes to steal things from this world. He says that's sort of my purpose. Now he grabs the scarlet thread or the scarlet string, once again representing the plasma. And he says, hold on to this when you fall asleep. That way you can find me when we're on the road. So this is sort of a soul string, basically. If you've ever heard of the concept of soul strings, how you have a part of your spirit that is connected that goes up into your higher self or into the heavenlies. Now, let's take a look at this map, this dream map. And this is where I want all of you to put on your thinking caps and start thinking about dreams you've had and what you think that these things symbolize. Why so many people are dreaming of so many of the same things. This map is every dream in the world, Slumberland. So we start to zoom into the map, and we're going to check out some of these little dream worlds that they have here. First thing, I see one that says, I forgot my pants, right? I know people have dreamed that they have gone to school or gone to their college or gone to some public place usually, and for some reason you're naked, or for some reason you forgot your pants or whatever it may be, right? I think that it might harken back to the time when you don't need clothing. You know you don't need clothing. It just depends on the conditions. It depends on the environment, right? If you live in a perfectly tropical climate where everything's nice and warm all the time and there's not any weather of any kind, you don't need a lot of clothing or protection from weather, right? We also have, let's zoom in a bit more, see what else we got. Running but not moving. How many people have had this dream where you're trying to run, but you can't? You're like in a cartoon where they're running, but they're just in the same spot. Or me, I used to have a dream that I was in a race, but like everyone else was running at normal speed and I was just like in sludge. Like it's like the air was so thick around me, I could barely move, right? That's another type of a popular dream. How about this one? I've had this one a couple of times. Teeth falling out. What do you suppose would be the actual meaning in the real world of everyone dreaming that our teeth are falling out for some reason, right? I mean, I've had dreams where I could like I could just breathe and I'd be spitting teeth out for some reason. It was real weird. You know what I mean? And it's a very popular one too. Some people dream that they lost their hair. There's hair loss right there above me. So there's teeth falling out, people losing their hair, etc. What else we got? Clowns. Some people dream about clowns. I believe personally that harkens back to the time where those sliders, remember how we were talking about those people that jump from dream world to dream world or from realm to realm, right? Astronauts or whatever you want to call them, ancient aliens. They look like clowns, the traditions say. They're pasty white, right? And then they even know, the legends say, especially in the book of Enoch, that they're the ones that taught us how to use makeup and paint faces. So if you have this clown-looking white, almost albino-looking race of giant beings that paints their faces, doesn't that kind of imply some sort of a scary, terrifying clown type of a being? I think so. Naked in public, we've got being chased. How many people have the dream of being chased, right? And what are you chased by, I wonder? I love this. I feel like learning about dreams should be like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm not a big fan of like, schools, how we talked about, but like, I feel like this is an integral part of our reality, of our world, like teaching children and other people the purpose of dreams, why they dream, so they can learn to traverse the dream world. Most people have no control over their dreams. They cannot lucid dream because they don't know what it is. They don't know where they are. They don't know what's going on. They've been told it's all nonsense. It's just random things firing off. So no wonder people are confused when they go to bed at night. No wonder they don't know how to control what's happening, you know what I mean, and be a lucid dreamer. So I feel like this would be awesome to teach people because there's clearly import behind it. All right, let's see. He also goes on to say, jumping from dream to dream wherever we go. So this is representative of those space travelers that hop from world to world, basically playing cosmic chutes and ladders. He says, we swiped this map from a dream cop at the Bureau of Subconscious Activities. So there's some sort of government agency, and I don't want to say government as in a worldly government. There might be governments far above those of our realm or our plane of existence, right? There might be rules and regulations out there in the heavenlies that we don't even know about because they don't pertain to us, because they pertain to the heavenlies, or they pertain to space and those people who are going to be jumping from world to world, those expectations that are placed upon them. Hey, keep in mind, if you're going to jump from world to world, you need to know these guidelines. You need to follow these rules, right? The Bureau of Subconscious Activities, unfortunately for us, they're the bozos that decide what you get to dream. So that's super interesting too. We've got some sort of government type of entity that's out there in quote unquote space or the heavenly realms, right? The fractalverse police, basically. And they're the ones, something beyond this world is influencing us when we're asleep, is what is symbolically being said here. He says, unless you end up here, if you end up in this place, and he points to the map, if you're here, they can't affect your dreams. They can't mess with your dreams. If you get to this place, you're in control of your dreams. Now, are we still talking about dreams like when we're asleep here in the waking world and we just take a nap? And the things the places we go? Or are we getting deeper? Are we talking about how the waking world itself is actually a part of a huge, great, grander dream, a bigger dream? And if you end up in this place, right, within the waking world, wherever this might be physically, then those governments have no control over you. You're set free, essentially. It's called the Sea of Nightmares in the movie. And he says that's where the pearls are, right? And remember, it represents Mount Meru for us here in our local realm. So here's a picture of the pearls. As you can see, they're all glowing, as well they should be. If they were just regular old pearls, they would not glow like this. And it's not for the movie. It's not just to make them more beautiful and, oh, look at the pretty pearls. It's because they have a purpose behind what they represent, what they really are. They're energetic in nature. He says you can wish for whatever you want in Slumberland if you have one of these pearls. Now, he says the Bureau puts in secret doors to connect the dreams. Now, if the dream worlds represent like Earth and like, another alternate Earth and some other Earth over here, what he's saying is that there are doors, there are portals, there are passages, secret entrances between the worlds that only some people know about. Now, apply that to all of the weird, random, strange celebrities that visit Antarctica for apparently no reason whatsoever except to say that they've gone. Maybe they're feeling the walls. Maybe they're feeling things out and they're trying to find these secret doors, right? Civilians are not supposed to know about these unless you're a genius like myself, he says. All right, so we go through this door, everything changes. Once you leave one of the doors to the world that you live in and come from, you have to keep your reservations, okay? You have to take things with a grain of salt because now you're entering into a totally different way of life, a totally different normal. Okay, it will be a brand new normal for the entire world. So he says, all right, welcome to my world, kid. Now, check this out. If they are indeed space traveling, like I suppose, right? Like I'm theorizing about, and this represents those people who go from reality to reality. I have brought up many different instances here on my channel during my videos where I talk about the different movies and TV shows and stuff where they do stuff like this. And many, many, many times, what do they use to travel through? Oftentimes, it is a phone booth, okay? Right? Because these are the circuits of time. These are the plasma conduits that connect this energetic hub to this energetic hub called a world number 1 and world number 2, right? And they're connected and they need to pass information from one to another. So you have these plasma conduits, or hallways out there in the fractalverse, and they're connected. The entrances are seen symbolically as being phone booths, just like Doctor Who, just like Wreck-It Ralph, or he uses the internet, which is same type of concept. Just like Bill and Ted, Excellent Adventure, right? So here we have the phone booth. It says telefono. So they come out of a phone booth once again, right? Traveling those circuits of time. Now he says, if the dream cops catch you, they will lock you up and throw away the key, doomed to rot in a dingy bureau prison cell for all of eternity until you cease to exist entirely. Now imagine that. Imagine that you are bouncing from world to world, but you happen to be somebody who's breaking the rules. Like, I don't know, instantly, changing the population by having kids with the locals, or, whatever things are off limits according to the ancient religions and stuff. There seem to be some rules, right? If you get caught by the space police, right, they put you in jail out there in space where you don't age, where you just stay there forever and ever and ever. And that is kind of like hell, which is weird. All right, so the next door they're looking for, he says, is behind the stage. That's symbolic for behind the stage of our world, or somewhere where you can't see it on the surface. And they're being chased by these plasma tentacle, smoke tentacle things, and they go through another doorway. They come out in this sort of crystalline city, this city made of glass, basically. And he's like, oh, it's your nightmare. You're the one who's bringing us all this stuff. And let me see if you can see his feet. Because he also represents the big bad wolf. Do you see those feet there? Those are wolf feet. So he's not Pan. He's not entirely just like, a satyr, basically, because he has the feet of a wolf. He represents the big bad wolf, right? That's chasing the pigs. She carries a pig with her, right? And he will huff and puff and blow the house down, the pig house, right? Which is this world that we live in right now. And that's why the big bad wolf, what kind of stupid weapon is that in that children's story? It's to blow the house down. You know what I mean? Like there's all kinds of ways that story could have gone, but instead he uses his wolf breath to blow the house down. You know what I mean? It's because it's symbolic of the apocalypse and the winds that kick up during the apocalypse. You brought this nightmare. Nightmares smell fear. Now, this is a huge concept that I've run into in movies and fantasy and fiction. When they're alluding to the apocalypse, they strongly recommend not exuding fear, right? To let go of fear, to be confident and stuff, because there are those entities, specifically energetic entities, that they see into the energetic spectrum, or you could say the spirit world. They see into that world. And because they see into that world, you light up like a Christmas tree whenever you are exhibiting strong energetic qualities like fear or love. I'm sure it works on both sides of the spectrum, right? All right. So she's down underneath the school doing her little dreaming or whatever, and she's interrupted by one of her buddies who says he's checking his mushrooms. So he just happens to be growing some random mushrooms underneath the school that nobody knows about. They put this in here just real quick, just some weird, seemingly random reference to something. I believe it has to do with the mycelium network in our world, right? With all the different mushrooms that are going to be growing after the apocalypse happens. This is probably one of the first foods that many of you, I'm sure, will probably eat, is mushrooms, because the world will be perfect for growing mushrooms, right? Everything shakes. The entire world will be shaking, which causes liquefaction, which turns our world into a muddy, swampy kind of an environment for a time, which means that mushrooms will be ripe for growing. And they'll grow to humongous sizes too. Okay. So these are the sizes of mushrooms under these conditions. Under this, you see that blindingly white light that's coming from them, right? They grow small. You change the lighting, you change the conditions in the environment, and those plants, boom, they grow to massive sizes. Now she's back at home and the uncle's like, I know you want to sleep all the time because you're sad. He's talking to her, but he's also talking right to my personal heart, okay? I feel this way often in my real life when I'm not doing YouTube and stuff. Sometimes I get sad, man, because the world's a crazy, messed up, upside down place. And sometimes I just want to go to sleep. Sometimes I don't want to even deal with the world. I don't want to deal with the day. I just want to go to sleep and just tell myself, you know what? Like, I'm going to reset, charge all my energy so that I can come back and deal with this crazy place. So it's kind of touching on that for a lot of us. So she wants to go back to sleep. She really wants, she doesn't like the world the way that it is. She doesn't like the school world and the government world and the world where we're all stuck in these slave loops that we live in. She wants to go back to sleep. She wants life to return to Wonderland, to that dreamlike place where we're free, where we came from. So she's like, go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep. But she can't sleep in the movie. When she wants to go to sleep, she can't, right? This is many of us late at night when you're like, I'll try. I will try. Okay. You lay down, close your eyes real tight, give it about 15 minutes. Meanwhile, your clocks are going, you got all the gears going in your head and you're just like, man, I can't. That's because your spirit energy is becoming amplified, very strong, but the body is drained. That's why you sleep for 8 hours a day. That's too long. Okay. For me, I'm speaking for myself. That's ridiculous. That's crazy to sleep for a third of your life. What's the purpose? You know what I mean? If you're dreaming for a third of your life, right? What's the purpose of actually being awake? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, we should be awake all the time, just constantly awake and experiencing things. In the old world, the legends say that people would meditate to sleep for however long they wanted to, right? Sometimes it was like a quick little 20-minute little meditation session, and that's all they needed to feel completely energized for the rest of the day or for more than one day. All right, so she goes into this crystalline world where Flip has a Twinkie machine and he's shaking the heck out of it trying to get a free Twinkie instead of just breaking the glass, I guess. Which reminded me of all the Twinkie symbolism I have seen in the movies quite often, usually apocalyptic movies where people savor the Twinkie or whatever. It's really simple. Twinkies basically last forever. Okay. I don't know. I have not tested that, but this is my assumption that they're so full of preservatives and crap that they're not real food. Like, you can eat it, right? If you need to survive. So if you find some Twinkies in the post-apocalyptic world, those are probably one of the foods that will take the longest to go bad. And this is just all my perspective. I haven't tested that or anything, but it seems like it. All right. So then, Flip tells the girl, Nemo, he's like, yeah, I don't wake up. I've been in dreamland for a long time since I was a kid. I grew up in dreamland. I don't wake up. And she says, everybody wakes up. He says, not me. I don't wake up. Door after door, dream after dream, I went. And then I realized I don't have to wake up, right? Now, this is very interesting, right? This sort of mindset of being stubborn not to wake up, it works both ways, right? So it can be a good thing or it can be a bad thing. It just depends on your perspective. Now, if we compare the dream world where they're just sleeping or whatever to the waking world as a dream, the world that we live in as a dream, that's just all made up out of coding and stuff, right? Then what that means is he decided that he needs to bounce from dream to dream so that he can keep his immortality, so that he doesn't grow old. Because once you get stuck in a dream world, which is our waking world or the realm that we live in currently in the physical, right? There's only a small window of opportunity to come into these worlds. You have to come in when the door is open, or you have to open the door or have the keys to the door like he does, right? Once you get in here, if you stay in here when that door shuts, you're stuck, right? For the most part. There might be exceptions and anomalies, but for the most part, you're stuck, which means you're going to start growing old, right? The pressure is going to build in that world, which contributes to, less and less oxygen being used and stuff, especially during the time when those blue beams retract, right? Everything starts to decay. We go through entropy. We're under entropic conditions. Is that how you would say that? I don't know. Entropy conditions. Anyways, he wants to keep his immortality, so that's why he's jumping from realm to realm. He doesn't want to stay in one realm where you get old super fast and die, and then you have to be reincarnated, and then you forget who the heck you are, and you have to figure out who you are and what you were doing the last time, and then you have to pick up on your journey, but now you're way older. You know what I mean? Like it's a hassle. It's easier for people like him and explorers like me to just stay young so that we can so that we can keep those memories of who we are and what we're doing and what our purpose is. He says, I don't want to wake up. I'm not trying to stay in one of these dream worlds and grow old and die, right? Now, they find a garbage truck. They're looking for this exit. The exit happens to be in the garbage truck. So this is really interesting. They say, who drives a garbage truck, right? They could have put any kind of a car in this. It could have been a bus, could have been a double-decker bus, could have been whatever, right? But it's this garbage truck symbolism that we see in the movies quite often. There's always some sort of a garbage truck reference, or there's a landfill reference, or there's a junkyard reference. All of these references to piles of garbage. Why? Because that is what you will see in the post-apocalyptic world, is piles of junk all over the place because everything got sucked up during the depressurization event, but then it all settles down. Those things that didn't get sucked out beyond the sky, right, beyond the limits of the sky, they float right back down to the surface, and they pile up, and they create just piles of debris and junk that survivors will sift through to try to find something useful. Now, we find the driver of the truck. Turns out this is the post-apocalyptic world, symbolically speaking, as we just talked about. There's a kid driving. The only person in this dream is this kid. It's just a child, right? But it's a child that kind of acts like an adult. Isn't that interesting? It's a child driving a huge garbage truck, first of all, which looks strange and out of place. But then it's a child that has a uniform on. And his name is Emmett, which means truth. I don't know if you could see that. But he's got a uniform on, just like a grown-up would. Just like somebody who has a job. He has tattoos, albeit they're little kid tattoos, but still tattoos nonetheless. It's like he's already a grown-up, but he's just in a child's body. Here's where this comes from. After we go through this polarity shift and the world depressurizes, right? The conditions in our world will change to enable us to live much, much longer, which means those of you who are children now, you will retain your childhood. You will retain your appearance as a child. It will take way longer for children to get to puberty and to start growing into maturity and getting older and stuff. So a child can be a child for like 100 years. Under those types of conditions. In other worlds, I fully think that this is happening, okay? that it takes a lot longer for people to grow. This kid could actually be way older than the little girl next to her. This kid, symbolically speaking, right, in the post-apocalyptic world, you might come up to a person, you might think it's a child, but that child has been that way for like 75 years. And they could actually be able to drive cars and hold intelligent conversations and stuff. They can't help how long that their body is taking to grow, or to look like it's aging, right? In an electrically charged world that keeps you young for a very long time. All right, so they drive that garbage truck right over a cliff. They go down into the water. They're underwater, and then they come up out of a toilet. That's the next passage. I thought this was really interesting because I have had that dream. Have you guys ever dreamed that you have like either went into a toilet, to, like, you know, gone into it to swim or something, or you came up out of a toilet? I have. I mean, it was a clean toilet in my dreams. It's not all gross or anything, but weird. I didn't even know that was something that other people dreamed. And this is huge. I feel like we should talk more and share our dreams more. We should speak on our dream subjects more often, because the more we put our heads together, the more we can collaborate, the more we can start to figure out the meaning of this. Like, wait a minute, you dreamed of coming out of a toilet? How random is that? I thought I was the only one. Turns out there's many people that dream about this type of stuff. Right? So as they come up out of the toilet, Penn or Flip, whatever his name is, he comes up out of the toilet too. And then the space cop, Mrs. Green, she catches up to them. Now check this out. Her name is Cindy, right? I'm not going to get too much into the space cop chick, but she's the one who's chasing them. He's the slider. He's the world traveler or whatever. She is like, you know, you broke the rules of sliding. You broke the rules of traveling and hopping from realm to realm, basically, right? And she catches him. And he says, you're 160 years old. That's because she's from out there in the heavenlies, where she doesn't age, right? This guy gets off in the endless staircase level, which is weird, really weird. This is starting to look a lot like the Backrooms. Remember that concept that we talked about? That creepypasta called the Backrooms? Very much like this, where he gets out. Now, I will tell you this as well. I think, like when I imagine space, or what we have been told and programmed to think of when we imagine space, like all that black emptiness and darkness, I see this. I don't see empty blackness and space. I actually see fullness. So out there beyond the limits of our sky, if you were to look at the heavenlies, or you were to look at quote unquote space, it would not be full of space. It would actually be quite full. The fullness. Like, I don't know what else to call it, really. What's the opposite of space? All right, so they're back in the elevator, and he randomly offers her a waffle. So there's this connection between this Pan-like character and waffles as well. Let's check it out. Let's learn about the word waffle. All right, so it talks about being the batter for cake, etc. But if you go to the Proto-Germanic, it says it's from wavila, which means a web or a honeycomb. Immediately after, we just saw this guy walk out into the web of space, right? Or the honeycomb of space, where you have like all these little entrances and hallways and exits and stuff, right? He hands her a waffle, and he makes a point in this movie about how much he just loves waffles. Why? It could have been anything. It's not just some insignificant random joke. It's not because the writer really likes waffles and he had to put that into the movie. You know what I mean? It's not to make people laugh because it's totally unrelated and stupid and it's just ha ha ha, he likes waffles. It's because it's full of symbolism. The waffle symbolism is the honeycomb. It's that honeycomb beehive kind of a shape, which is, I think, personally, this is my concept of space, okay? That it's more like a honeycomb. It's more like a hive out there with all kinds of conduits and hallways and stuff like that. Now he says, I thought that if I just got that pearl, I could remember who I was. Take a look at the colors again, right? He says, I just want to wake up. He can't remember who he is, right? Now he represents one aspect of God, or godlike beings and creatures and stuff, and he doesn't know who he is. He lost his identity. This is the role of Brahma. Okay, in Hinduism, the Hindu creation story talks about how Brahma, the creator god, was all there was. And Brahma wanted company. Brahma wanted to experience something other than Brahma's self, but that's impossible because Brahma is all there is. So Brahma had to trick himself into forgetting who he was. And in doing so, he divided himself. so that he could meet himself and experience himself and get to know himself all over again. Then that Brahma did the same thing. And those Brahmas did the same thing. They split so many times in its own mind that it dissociates from itself. It forgets who it is. And ultimately, all of creation groans, I just want to wake up. And we will, once we get to know ourselves. Like, once we fully, intimately get to know ourselves, there's no purpose for us to do that any longer, right? And the dream will end, and we become one again. So they're walking through this really ugly, dirty, trashy space cop sort of office building. And she says, clearly management hasn't updated our wardrobe. I have noticed a trend in these television shows and movies. Have you guys noticed this? Where you have this sort of space cop agency and whatever it is, and they're always, trying to track those criminals that are jumping from world to world or from time to time or whatever, right? These space cops, whatever you want to call them, they're always out of time. Usually with like a 70s throwback or a 60s or 50s kind of a deal. Like, they're never modern. They're never caught up with like the modern world that we live in. For some reason, they have like old world technology, right? Just like in the Umbrella Academy, right? There's this sort of space cop organization where they're very like, they have old equipment and typewriters and not a lot of electrical appliances, right? You might say. We also have, this one was from Loki, right? There was the space cop agency. I forgot all the fancy names for them, but you had the same thing where it was very much an out of place. Like the space cops are like from another decade. Even though they're seen as being super advanced, they're very old fashioned, which I find to be very interesting when we look at all these different agencies. All right. So she says there are no pearls. It's a myth. She doesn't know about the pearls, or she's lying. Which you're going to find out she's lying. Okay, so the space cop is saying there are no pearls when she knows damn well there are pearls. You'll see at the end. All right, so now Nemo is talking to her uncle about her dreams of Flip. And her uncle is basically like, Flip was my outlaw name, right? So now we learned that the uncle is actually the other face of Janus, right? One is a younger one is an older one. He's basically the older version because he lives under the blue sky and he's aging very quickly, compared to Flip, the Pan type character with the horns, who represents the red sky world filled with magic. He says he didn't sleep for 3 nights before he forgot about Flip, before he forgot his dreams. 3 nights in a row, he didn't sleep. That happens to be the same amount of time that the world goes dark for between resets. 3 nights, 3 days and 3 nights. After that, no more Flip. Why? Because the Flip has finished. Okay, that's why there's no more Flip after 3 days and 3 nights or whatever. Because the polarity flip or the polarity reversal of our world is completed. So after 3 days and 3 nights, you don't need Flip anymore. There is no more Flip. It's just Philip, right? So now he's talking about a transition that he went through. This entity went through this transition where he lost touch with his creative side. That means that blue beam retracted and boom, gives birth to Philip of the blue sky, where there's not a lot of empathy, not a lot of emotion, a lot of left brain thinking, where the ends justify the means, a lot of math, a lot of numbers, you know what I mean? A lot of constructions and squares and cubes in the world and stuff, as opposed to when the sky is red. Or that golden age that we go into. He says, anyway, that's ancient history now, isn't it? Isn't it? It sure is ancient history. They put that line in there purposefully, just for us who know what they're talking about. I love that little inside joke. It's ancient history now. Yeah, it totally is ancient history. It's also your future. All right, so then she gets into the elevator and she sees this little baby, this little kid, totally wearing the black and white symbolism of the space travelers, like I talked about, right? Those sliders out there, that's their color. That's when you see black and white, that represents those beings who either come from a line of space travelers or they themselves are people who can jump from realm to realm or from dream to dream or from, travel through time or however it's presented, right? But the baby can talk. The baby looks up right at her and says in a very mature voice, "Time to make the donuts," right? That's exactly what we were talking about earlier with that other baby or that toddler that was driving the garbage truck, right? There's a reason why this kid is dressed up in a little tuxedo and he can speak perfectly maturely, because in the world to come, regeneration is in high gear. Okay. That's why it talks about woe to those who are pregnant in those days. Okay. Because you're not going to have 9 months long birth like you're used to. Okay. That child is going to develop very quickly in the womb because everything is regenerating so quickly. Your body's regenerating. Those children are regenerating and they pop out quickly and much bigger. Right? Able to walk, essentially. Little toddlers being born because they advanced so quickly in the womb. If you're advancing, if you're regenerating and it's the fountain of youth keeping you nice and young because it's regenerating all your cells at such a quick level, isn't it also going to do that to babies in the womb? How much more so, right? So the babies come out essentially being able to talk and stand up and walk around just like animals do today, right? You see, animals aren't just born and they just flop around like dead fish and have to have somebody care for them and all this stuff. They're born and they're ready to go. They're like, whoa, let me get my balance. You know what I mean? Which is also what many of the legends talk about in the ancient world. Humans were born in that same fashion, in that same manner. All right, so Nemo goes to rescue Flip from the prison cell of his monochromatic backrooms prison cell out there in the space fractalverse world. I forgot why I took a picture of this particular one, so we're going to move forward. All right, now they go through another door. They're looking for the final door to go to the Sea of Nightmares, and look where they are, right? This is a little path. They're creating a map for us through the movie to find a physical place in the actual realm that we live in, okay? They're creating a map by way of showing you these images as someone else is on their journey to an important destination, right? I will also throw this out there since I used the word. The ancient glyph for a destination, right? A place to meet up, a place to go to, was the letter G, or the Gimel in the ancient languages. Oftentimes you'll see that right in the middle of the map. All right, so they're way up here in Canada, allegedly. They're way up towards the north. So wherever they're going, they're headed north, right? They're up there in Canada. He says the final door has got to be out here somewhere, right? They're up there by the Arctic Circle. Now they meet these Canadians that are flying on geese. Apparently this is a huge dream, according to the movie, in Canada. Do I have any Canadians in the chat? I just want to check. Like, do you guys ever dream of flying on geese? I have not had that dream. It sounds fun. It sounds like a blast. I would love to have a dream of flying on a giant goose. But anyways, this is also symbolic of when these creatures will be that big. I promise you, one day birds, lizards, animals of all kinds and sorts will grow to gigantic proportions. Now, if you and your body has already gone through the period of puberty that we go through, where your growth is kind of stinted at a certain age, then you might stay that way. Now, if everything else in the world around you starts to procreate and grow, especially if you're given long life, you're going to see the world start growing all around you as you appear in comparison to shrink, right? Everything gets real big. Now, you don't really shrink. You just keep your stature. The rest of the world starts to grow. Some of you might actually get like a second growth spurt. You might go through another puberty. You might grow another pair of teeth, etc. That comes in addition to your extra long life that you'll inherit. All right, so they start taking off towards this valley between all these mountains, which is where they should go. If they're heading to the North Pole, if you look at the old world maps, I don't have an example here. I've shown it a million times. But those 4 lands at the North Pole on the old maps are in a valley. So if that's where they're headed to, like I believe and speculate, then they should end up in a valley. And here they are in a valley surrounded by mountains. There's a little hut. Now they need to go into this little hut. And when they come when they come out the other side of this hut door, they are at the lighthouse. Remember, that's Mount Meru. This is all about a quest and a journey to get to Mount Meru, like so many movies are. Okay, they're speaking to us. They're speaking to some of us, not all of us. Okay, not all of you out there. These movies are not saying this to all of you. To most of you, this movie is not saying a damn thing. I'm going to be honest. To most of you, this movie is it's empty filler. Okay, this is just something to entertain you and to amuse you before you go back to being a slave, so that you forget all about the fact that you're a slave, that you're not free, that you don't control your own decisions, and you can't do whatever you want to in life, because we are all slaves in a system that is designed to breed slaves, right? So for most of you, this is just a break from your slavery. For the rest of you, however, this movie's handing you keys to your freedom, if you choose to take them. All right, so they go back to where Mount Meru should be. They say it's cold. It's super cold. We're talking about beyond the northern winds, beyond the Arctic Circle. And she says, "I know who you are, by the way." Now look at her. Look at her sweater. You see how there's 3 stripes? I don't know if people saw that in the chat, but she has 3 stripes now. She's in the dreamland. Her Waking World sweatshirt had like 7 or 8 stripes on the middle portion, right? In the dream world, they chose purposefully to give her a shirt that has 3 blue stripes, like we have talked about on my channel many times with Mount Meru and the 2 witnesses on either side, those other beams that shoot up and unite, creating that anode and cathode electrical arc, right? The 3 stripes. The 3 stripes are a symbol for victory. They're a symbol for the survivors of the apocalypse, so many different things, just like Adidas and stuff like that. She says, "I found out who you are in the waking world." So she represents a truth seeker who has found out about the cyclical cataclysm, the flip in our world. She found out in the real world, just like we are finding out now under the blue sky conditions of this world without the magic. We can still find out and learn about those ancient times, or what I call our ancient oblivion, which, by the way, I wrote a book about. I don't plug my book a lot, but if you want to check out my book, you totally can. It's on Amazon. It's called Ancient Oblivion, The Plasma Apocalypse. So if you want to know more about that, feel free to go check out and preview my book on Amazon. All right, so she's like, I figured out who you are, by the way, right? Your counterpart, because remember, Janus has been split in half. You've got this side, and then you've got the blue sky side of him that's very boring or whatever, right? And believes in going to school and stuff. He's like, let me guess. I'm a famous outlaw, right? She's like, you're a doorknob salesman. Ah, sting. Ooh, right? He's so excited. He's like, I gotta be some awesome adventurer, just like I am, right? You're a doorknob salesman. Super sorry about that. Many of you probably feel this way. In this world, for some reason, you're a doorknob salesman. You have a boring life, okay? I do. Many people do. I mean, not totally. I don't think my whole life's boring or anything. I make fun of my life. I have fun with my life, with my time, as much as I can. But compared to the red sky, compared to living in a world filled with magic, me being a YouTuber and being JayDreamerZ is like being a doorknob salesman to me, as opposed to being Jay, the wizard. I don't know what I would be, but I would be something way more cooler under the conditions of a different magically charged world. You know what I mean? Not to downplay being a YouTuber. I very much am grateful and I enjoy what I do. However, it is in comparison like being a doorknob salesman, basically. So he's like, what'd you call me? What? Right? He can't even conceive of this, right? He's like, there's no way. I rock. You know what I mean? He's like, you're telling me I'm a doorknob salesman after the apocalypse and this is what happens to me? What a buzzkill, man. God. You know what I mean? He's like, look, I've got the 3 W's, wine, women, and waffles. The 3 dubs. Boom, there it is. So there it is again, right? Wine, which is, he's the god of wine, symbolically speaking, right? Which is why they put horns on many of those ancient gods too. Even on Moses. I don't know if you knew that, but it's said that Moses had horns. So he's got wine. He's the god of wine. The wine is when the sky turns a wine color and that plasma comes down and fills up the Holy Grail, which is the valley. Remember how we learned that the word grail means crater in our Indiana Jones breakdown, right? So that red plasma comes down, it fills up the Holy Grail with the blood of God, etc. He's got wine, which is the heavenly wine. He's got his women, and he's got his waffles, which we've talked about most of those. He's like, I'm not a doorknob seller. Don't say that. I'm a flipping outlaw. You know what I mean? So come on, listen, I'm actually, let's step away. Forget this movie. I'm talking to you. Okay. I'm talking to all of you in the chat right now. I'm talking about you future people who are going to be watching in the future. I'm talking to all of you watchers out there, okay? This is how many of you feel, because I feel this way. And if I feel this way, it's a numbers game, man. Others are bound to. Look at it. I'm not a doorknob seller. I'm a freaking outlaw. I know this burns inside of you. I know many of you feel this way, that you feel like you know you're a doorknob salesman in this world. You know that that's your character that you're playing right now, essentially, symbolically, right? And on the inside, this is you. On the inside, you're like, I'm a flipping outlaw, man. What am I doing? You know what I mean? You almost want to smack yourself sometimes. At least I do sometimes. Not really actually smack myself, but to snap out of it. You know what I mean? I'm not a doorknob salesman. Start saying that. If you catch yourself going through the loops of life and the routines and you get caught up in your personal little slavery, stop what you're doing and say out loud, I'm not a doorknob salesman. I'm not a doorknob salesman. And say it with disgust. like that's just my advice to you, because I feel like that might help you out to break free. Anyways, I'm going to go find a dream with a bar in it. He says, he's like, F this, that's depressing, man. Now, on the other hand, even though he's joking, sort of, he really does want to go find a bar. But that's where he needs to go, to the bar. Remember, Mount Meru, the beam, the sky, the skylight, the column, the rod, the bar, right? That's where he needs to go. The bar is the truth. I'm not talking about going to the local tavern and getting drunk, and that's the truth. I'm talking about the bar. Passing the bar means living up to the standard. The standard is the flag of the world, the post of the world, etc. All right, so then he says, then I'm going to go drink until I forget who I am again, which is also what happens. We experience worldwide amnesia. I haven't really talked about it a lot lately, but I have done quite a few videos on my Plasma Apocalypse playlist that talk about worldwide amnesia and how we are all affected. Most of us are affected. Our memories are affected instantaneously, not just forgetting over time, because time passes and erases memories, but just stuff happens during the apocalypse that directly and instantly affects the memory collectively, worldwide. All right, so the girl gets in her little boat, and she is off to the North Pole, which is her lighthouse, symbolically, right? So she gets in her boat, she takes a trip, just like Moana, right? So you're gonna remember a lot of little comparisons here, right? Moana also needed to make a special trip to a special little island where she met this sort of god of dreams or Prometheus type of a figure, right? Sometimes it's Morpheus, sometimes it's more like a Prometheus type of a figure, just like Truman. Truman also, despite having a huge fear of the ocean and the waters and going into uncharted territory, etc., he knows he needs to get into a boat and he needs to go somewhere to escape his little enclosed world that he lives in. So she gets towards the North Pole, she gets under the water, starts swimming down towards that hole that opens up into the earth, and then they do this camera trick. And they do this in a lot of different movies, so pay attention. They're showing you that right side up is not what you think, okay? Right side up is what you're used to. It's your side up, really. It's not right side up. It's just your side up, right? But whenever you go into other realms, right, where there's different conditions, upside down now becomes right side up in the underworld or in other realms, etc., right? It all depends on the conditions of the world that you live in and where you are. So she goes down into the inner recesses of the earth, where now she can basically walk upside down. Now, this says most wanted. Flip caught one of these out of the air, and he's super proud because he's like #1 most wanted to the Dream Cops. But then I saw this. It says oculi clausi animi aperti. Isn't that something interesting, right? Someone who knows Latin had to like actually put that on there. This is really interesting. They don't discuss this. These are the best ones in the movies, the ones that they do not talk about, the ones that are not explained whatsoever. I feel like those are super important. So let's read what this means. Oculi clausi animi aperti. I wonder if anyone in the chat got it yet. Nope, it does not mean as above, so below. Or does it? Let's check it out. So I did a Google search and translated it quite easily, and it says, eyes closed, mind open. Isn't that something? Eyes closed, mind open. Interesting. All right, so this little girl is going towards the pearls, those little pearls of light that we were talking about that definitely exist within Mount Meru. many legends that I've gone over that seem to be alluding to Mount Meru. And Mount Meru also goes by many names, okay? But it is the holy mountain of the world. It is the center of our world, basically. And that is where you will find many of these little energetic balls of light that they are calling pearls in these movies, these little fruits of the tree of life, basically. And that's why she's going down the spine of some ancient monster or whale or whatever it is at the bottom of the ocean, right? Because the location of these pearls or these fruits of light or life is at the spine of the world. When that light shoots out, when that beam shoots out, it creates little eddies and little fields that shoots out as well, looking like a ladder in the sky or the spine of the earth, reaching up and touching the heavens. All right, so she finds her little glowing pearls of energy. She's trying to grab them. They're just out of reach. This totally reminded me of the whole Adam and Eve story where Eve is also reaching for the fruit of life, etc. And there's the snake symbolism there, meaning the plasma on the tree of life, etc. She finally grabs one. She gets it and she looks down at it. Remember, she can use this to make a wish to change her real world, to change her dreams, basically. So she can become a lucid dreamer, not a robot. You see, that's a robot. If you're basically a robot in your dream, if you're just letting things happen to you. Okay? Like if you have these, which is power, you can become a lucid dreamer. You can start wishing and making wishes, just like in the Neverending Story, right? Where he gets his little pearl or his little final grain of sand from Fantasia, and he can start changing the world that he lives in too, right? All right, cool. We move forward. They're going back to the lighthouse. He's trying to bring her back home to the lighthouse. There's her sweater again. I just wanted to point that out with the 3 blue stripes on it. It reminds me of this. This is called a talit in Judaism. The talit is also known commonly as like a prayer shawl, right? It's what, many different sects of Judaism in its various forms, many people wear these, right? They wear it and they say their prayers. They actually flipped it. It's kind of like a little scarf, basically. And when you're going to pray, symbolically, you go into your little prayer closet, you flip over this shawl over your head and you bow your head and you say your prayers or whatever, right? To sort of keep that energy right there, which is very interesting. If energy comes up out of the ground and you have these people that have these hoods or huge shawls or something blanket and they can pull it over themselves so it kind of acts as a cup to catch energy that's coming up from the ground. You see where I'm going with that, right? Anyways, it does have the 3 blue lines in it, right? Which are the 3 blue lights that shoot up out from the North Pole regions. Excuse me. And then she says, Flip, wake up. That's her wish. She uses her wish to help Flip out, right? Because ultimately, if we can help Flip, we are going to help to end all of this, okay? If you're one of those types of people that thinks that reality or what is perceived as being reality is also a dream, or it's also a simulation, or it's also not real, even though it seems real and feels real, etc. This is what the movies, at least to me, are starting to say to us, that there is a way to escape the dream. You have to fulfill the purpose of why you're even having the dream in the first place. This dream is for Flip. Flip has lost his mind. Flip forgot who he was. Flip is dissociated with himself. We return that to Flip, right? You give it back to Flip. You balance these things out so that there's no longer polarity that stretches out or appears to between 2 perceived places or perspectives or whatever. When in reality, that's false. There is only one, right? It all comes from one, just like Brahma. All right, so she's trying to help Flip out. She's trying to bring a neutral path back into the cosmos. She asks Flip to wake up, which means she wants Flip to unite with himself, right? So his dream world version of himself starts to disappear. Remember, this is actually her uncle in the waking world, right? So he starts to disappear. He bursts into him like a million butterflies, which represent change and transitional periods and stuff. She goes to the lighthouse. Now, take a look at the scenery around here. They don't explain what's going on or why this is happening. So let's examine. The space cop, Agent Green, says you had to give up your dream, right? I guess I found something more important, she said. So she's like, in order for you to get what you wanted, you actually had to help someone else with what they wanted or with what they needed that they didn't even know that they wanted. So in order for us to be fulfilled, or to feel happy, to feel like we have a sense of purpose, right? To fulfill our purpose, we help others to fulfill theirs. We become a guide, right? We're not forcers. We're not those who enforce, like these space cops or whatever it seem to be. We're not enforcers. We're not here to wake people up and insist that they see things from our perspective, or that they suddenly just rise to a higher state of consciousness just because we think we have. That's not for us. And when I say us, I mean those of us who act as the lighthouse, right? Those of us who are guides. So she says, I guess you found something more important than whatever we thought our own selfish desires were. She says, you have the dream that you're meant to have. Remember that. So remember what she's saying now, the space cop, is she knows it's all a part of some bigger plan. This whole dream that she was having, this little girl, was designed for her specifically to dream in a particular way, which means if you're the dreamer, right, and the dream is a design or a code or something that has intelligent design behind it, that means that if you experience yourself waking up or being a part of some woke community, or you become a truth seeker or something, it's not like, and I'm just speculating, I'm just throwing what ifs out there, but it's possible that you're not doing any kind of rebellious action. Maybe you were meant to. Maybe that is your destiny. Maybe that is your purpose. Maybe the faster we own up to that and we realize that, the more confidence we can have changing the world, realizing that we are the world changers. You have the dream that you're meant to have. We make sure of that, she says the lady from the heavens. So what do you do next? What you do next? Well, that's up to you. What we do next is up to us. We are handed the cards. It's up to you how to play them. Right? You're given the cards. There's a lot of options with those cards. You're given the dream. There's a lot of options with that dream. How are you going to handle yourself? What are you going to do with your dream? This girl looked for the pearls that allowed her to change her dreams and to think and to be lucid and aware within the dream itself. What are you going to do? The movie asks. So she looks down at her wish. Look up at the lighthouse. You see how it's misty? It's foggy. It's hard to see it clearly. But she makes her wish and it all starts to go away. Look at the color spectrum starting to change. You see that? How the colors return? With the fog world, okay, so this is the same type of a thing. When our world goes into the fog world, the world will depressurize. When that happens, fog is created worldwide instantaneously. There's mist rolling in from everywhere, okay? With that comes a lack of color. Our color spectrum, the sun will be gone. There will be a different light spectrum and it will be monochrome, which means one color. So we won't have white light that can be divided into all of these beautiful colors that we experience today. During that time, everything will be foggy and more monochrome. Or you could say sort of like black and white, right? But whenever we go into the pressure increasing in our world and all that fog starts to go away and the sun comes out and stuff, then the colors return to us. So she meets up with her dad. They're hanging out, enjoying the good old times. And the dad says, did you ever figure it out? Did you ever figure out what the lighthouse is for? Did you? You guys ever figure out what the lighthouse is for? She says it's not to keep ships safe. Now, if you're the lighthouse, your purpose is not to keep other people safe. Your purpose is not to force the path of those ships out there on the sea of life. That's not your purpose being a lighthouse. And that's not the purpose of a lighthouse. It is to guide you on your journey, to be a guide. All of us are little lights in a dark time. And your purpose, if you are a light, is to be a light. Not to go around forcing your light upon other people and insisting that they see the path, right? You walk your path. You be a light. And the stronger your shine, the more brilliant you are on your path, the more you're going to illuminate your path, which will give light to others who might be nearby, helping them to see. It's not for us to force truth. It's not for us to force perspective or to force somebody to walk in our exact same footsteps. It goes against the dream itself to do such a thing. All right, so she's like, you're right. You're totally right. So he says, so you can see things that the lighthouse keeper can only dream of. We are the lighthouse keepers. We are the guides so that others can experience confidently their own unique walk, right? So that they can have the tools, things like love and patience and kindness and being giving and considerate and thoughtfulness. They can have those tools and be equipped to go walk all their different unique experiences that they have, whatever they may be, so that we can help them and we could be guides for them on that walk. All right, so in real life, in the waking world, Nemo is drowning because she fell off the boat on her way back to the lighthouse, and there's people trying to wake her up. In the dream world, the dad has the key. See how everything's a slight yellow tint to it? Remember that? Some of you who were alive during the 60s and 70s, you might actually remember more of a yellow tint. All right, so he gives her the key. She's earned it. She's fought her way beyond the Goblin City, to the castle, to the lighthouse, to, you know what I mean? It's all the same type of symbolism. Now the uncle has found himself. The uncle has lost. Look at him. He's confident. He used to be terrified of the water in the movie, right? Now he's confidently sitting at the front of the boat. He does the Atlas symbol, right? He stands up, puts his arms up into the air. The girl's yelling out. They're both celebrating because they have found themselves. They don't need to live as slaves. They get to be free, and freedom starts here and here, right? Freedom starts inside, and it makes its way to the outside. So they're totally stoked, and he says, "Sweet dreams." He gives you a little wink. See that little one-eyed? That's Kronos, so it's appropriate that he wink right there. You see how he's winking, right? That means something's about to change. Whenever you see the wink, it means those of us who know about the one eye symbolism, don't worry. All right, so she's comfortable, she's happy, she's living with her uncle again. She went on a great journey to Mount Meru. We have gone on an amazing journey, and that is the end. Now it is time for another dream. Thanks for visiting me on my channel. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. I'm glad that the stream went well this time. Please go check out my website. I uploaded all of our newest Masterpiece Mad Libs, so you can go check those out too. And if you're interested in the plasma apocalypse symbolism, go check out my book. You can preview it for free on Amazon. Until next time, I'm JayDreamerZ saying good vibes and goodbye.
So hard to fade away. I try so hard to fade away, but something's forcing me to stay. It'd be easier for me if I turn away to flee. Oh, but there's something holding on, the way of being long gone. There's so many ways to escape, but I guess it's time to wake up, time to wake up. Found too many ways to escape, but I guess it's time to wake up.
All right, you ready? On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Good vibes and good vibes, everybody. Thanks for watching.